everybody. Wendy Sellers here, the HR lady. Welcome back. I'm here with my co-host, JC.
Wendy, it's such a pleasure to be here by your side yet again.
By my side virtually, since we're on the same coast, in the same country, but pretty far apart state-wise. Right. But I agree. It is a pleasure. I love doing this podcast. I love helping people. Folks that are listening today, we are going to be talking about how to deal with having more than one manager. So this is for employees who have more than one manager, but this is also for managers or HR folks that do have people on their team that report to more than one person. I don't know. A couple things that come to my mind are loss of autonomy and holy heck, confusion. What about you, JC?
I'm going straight to the script on this one because I got some good stuff for you. Listen, working for more than one person, it could be hard. It could be really hard. And there's three main things that you should watch out for from my perspective. Overload is one of them. When more than one person assigns you work, one of the most serious risks is having too much to do. And if you have more than one boss who oversees your work on various tasks and projects, each boss may treat you as if you have no other responsibilities. A second one, Wendy, that stands out to me is different messages, just like what you're saying. You know, bosses don't always understand what the other supervisors are saying, and there could be confusion if some people try to get in their own way. Different bosses, they've got varying expectations, and what impresses one may actually disappoint another. And here's my last one for you, my number 3, loyalty. Some bosses want you to believe that they're the most important person in your entire life. If you have more than one boss who feels that way, it's easy to get stuck in the middle. So when you work for multiple people, you frequently have to choose between different people who want your loyalty.
Yeah, the old school way, and it still happens, is where you have like a direct manager, but then on the org chart, there's a dotted line to another manager. Well, when the person that's either one, the direct manager or the dotted line manager, you know, there's egos involved too. And so there might be power plays. I've been here longer. Do as I say, not as that person says. It's very confusing. But one of the things that is really interesting to me is, seems like every, 5 to 10 years, I'm just throwing a number out there, I'm making that up though, is like, okay, we go from hierarchical structure, a clear org chart. Nope, now we're going back to project team. Nope, now we're going to team-based structure. And this is where it could get confusing. Like maybe you only have one manager, but you have a couple project managers that you have to report to.
Right.
So you're working on 4 projects and there's 4 project managers, and then you have a manager, like who's in charge out of those 4 or 5 people. I've worked in that situation before, and it is very, very confusing, and it is stressful, and it is very stressful for people that might be intimidated, or, you know, they're just saying, all right, I'm new here. I don't want to be the one to speak up. Y'all know me because I'm going to speak up no matter what, but not everybody's going to do that.
Exactly. A lot of people are going to stay on their heels and kind of take it as they acclimate or get situated. And we all know collaboration has taken over the workplace. And that's not just a blanket statement. That's according to the Harvard Business Review. And according to data gathered by the authors of their studies over the past 2 decades, the amount of time that managers and employees spend on collaboration and collaborative activities, believe it or not, it's increased by 50% or more. So to Wendy's point, to what you're saying, when you've got a project lead and you've got a supervisor and the supervisor's boss and all these other, it'll get pretty confusing for some people.
It really can. And I thought this was like just crazy. Gallup reports that 84% of U.S. employees are matrixed in some way. So whether that's dotted lines or working for, you know, a couple project managers and a main manager. And I could see it happen. Again, I'm not here to say it's wrong, but what we want to do is help these employees as a HR, as a manager, just as a leader, help them be successful. And, you know, one of the things that I really, really think anybody who reports to more than one person is you have to be organized. And that's hard because some people are more creative because they're not organized. And I don't want to take that creativity away from them to force them to be using a task list and everything. But if you could figure out a way to still be creative and keep track of everything, when another project manager comes to you or your own manager comes to you and says, hey, I'm sorry, I have an emergency, I need this done by 10 a.m. tomorrow, that's when you could pull the list out, or wherever you have it, in a computer program, and say, okay, well, I have another deadline at 5 p.m. today, so that only leaves me 2 hours tomorrow to get this done. Is that going to be enough? If not, then I need you, my manager, to go talk to that project manager and see if I could extend that deadline. What I really often find out, JC, is when managers, and especially somebody like me, a high D personality, I just throw out hey, can you get me this by 10 a.m. tomorrow? But it's not a real deadline. It's just something that I go, well, I'm going to ask. And if they say yes, I'm going to be happy about it.
Sure.
So if you can push back a little bit, say, hey, is there any way we could extend that till 10 a.m. the next day? Then I might say, oh, God, yeah, no problem. You can even have till Friday. I don't care. It's no big deal. So don't feel so bad about asking for, it's not really an extension of just saying, hey, this is brand new. You're telling me I have a new deadline that interferes with another deadline. Which one do you want me to move, and who's going to make that decision? And then on top of that, who's going to tell the other person, the other manager, that the deadline has been moved and now their project suffers?
The funny part about all that is, all that's taking place is the bureaucracy and the red tape that's created within an organization unto itself. And while all of that's transpiring, the job probably could have got done.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're like, hey, we've been sitting around talking about this when I could have just did it, and then you guys could have figured something else to tell the client. But communication is so important. Whether you're a manager or not, you still have to learn to manage up, and you need to learn how to communicate like an adult. It's not just the manager's a project manager, direct manager, line manager, dotted line manager. It's just not their responsibility to communicate. If you are an adult and you're in the workplace, it is your responsibility to manage up and say, I have an idea. Can we move this, this, and this, blah, blah, blah. And then they may just say yes, or they say, no, that's not possible. Okay, let's all stop going back and forth in email and text and me talking to you, you talking to him. Let's get together in a room real quick, even a Zoom call, and figure this out before we're just wasting time, like you said, JC, and it could have already been done.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like you're talking about with communication, consider a typical week in your own company, ladies and gentlemen. How much time does each person spend in meetings, on the phone, and responding to emails? In many companies, the proportion is around 80%. And that leaves employees with very little time to complete all the critical work on their own. So as a result of being buried under an avalanche of requests for input or advice, access to resources, or attendance at a meeting, their performance ultimately winds up suffering as they're attempting to serve multiple bosses. And you know what they do? They take assignments home. And soon, they start to stress. They burn out. Turnover becomes real. And a large body of evidence all sits within the realm of stress that's been created by your own bureaucracy.
It really is. Yeah, it really is. And it's also, we want to please our managers or our coworkers, regardless of what their title is, but we can't please everybody all the time. And so we have to set boundaries. This is at home too, right? But we can't say yes to everything, or we can say, yes, I can do that, but I can't do it till next month. Or, no, I can't do that, but I know somebody who just got something else taken off their plate. The biggest advice that I would, or I shouldn't say the biggest piece of advice, but another piece of advice I would say is, don't pit your bosses or your managers against each other.
Oh yeah.
Because now you're caught up in that that power struggle. And, that's more like, hey, can we just get in the room and talk about this? What can we move around so that I can get this done and we can make our clients happy? So it's different than saying, no, I can't do that. Or no, I can't do that today, but I could do it tomorrow. Will that work for you? It's really engaging the people in that conversation. So let them know this is the stuff that's on my list, and look at it. It's pretty important. At least I was told it was pretty important. So if you want me to override it because you're the end all be all decision maker, please, can you go tell the other manager that you've made the decision, and don't make me, the employee, be the bad guy?
This next piece I have for you ties into thoughts for those who are considering themselves as the buffers. They could be first-line managers, or for employees who are good at standing up for themselves. According to research from over 300 organizations, the distribution of collaborative work is extremely lopsided. In most cases, 3 to 5% of employees contribute 20 to 35% of value-added collaborations. People are drawn into projects and roles of increasing importance as they become known for being capable and willing to help. So as you become more capable and more skilled, people are going to seek you out. You're going to get more work dumped on you and brought your way in the collaborative environment. And now you're also reporting to more than one boss. Back to what Wendy said. You have to push back.
Yeah, you have to push back, professionally, responsibly. But, HR that's listening here today, or anybody who's wearing the HR hat, this is an organizational problem too. I mean,
yes.
This isn't blame the managers. The managers need to have very clear responsibilities. And if there's two managers, especially if they're actual managers, or then they're not like project managers or dotted line or whatever, but there's two managers that, maybe 50-50 work with an employee, it needs to be very clear on the primary responsibilities of both of those managers and how decisions will be made for, Wendy, who reports to both of them. Having two bosses or two managers, I don't like the word boss, but having two managers isn't necessarily a bad thing, because that means you're going to be more in the know of what's going on in the company, which means you can learn more. You can learn more about the product or the services that you sell. You can be seen more, and you could have more opportunity for career advancement and career development. Unless, of course, you don't want that, then that's a problem. But, really saying, if you're listening today and you're saying, well, I have two bosses and I'm struggling, what I would say is, get them together. Or if you're uncomfortable getting both of them together in the room, maybe go to HR or go to their boss. Hopefully it's the same one, and say, I need some clear understanding of who's going to make decisions when their tasks that they have given me, overlap with each other, maybe time wise. Who makes the decision? Is it me? Is it him? Is it her? Is it you? Please bring us all together and make that decision for us, or just explain to us how these decisions are made so that we can get things done and we're not stressed out and we don't go looking for another job.
110%. And if you're doing work on top of your regular responsibilities, you might even benefit from researching some new training resources to help you fulfill those new responsibilities effectively, especially if we're talking about multiple bosses and these associations. It can't hurt to inquire with your boss or bosses about training and professional development opportunities that could assist you in developing skills and broadening your knowledge base to learn critical company protocols and procedures. So there is also a level of responsibility on the employee to step up to the plate and be their own advocate as well, from my perspective. What do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, let's face it, though. Sometimes we wing it because we were like, well, we can figure this out. I don't want them to know that I don't have those skills. And all the power to you. If you can figure it out in a short period of time, then go for it. But if you can't, eventually you're going to fail. So that's when you need to raise the hand and go, hey, I'm struggling here. When I was hired, I was brought in for this role. I believe I succeeded well. You split me into two roles. I'm fine with that. But I need some training, by the way. Can I take some, courses on this so that I can help the team be successful and so that we don't fail. So it's all about communication. And the last thing that I want to say, JC, is listen, if you're just not comfortable with working with two, reporting to two or more people, maybe you're going to need to seek another position in that company or in another company, but you need to figure out what's good for you and then speak up and advocate for yourself, because I'm not going to say nobody else is going to advocate for you, but they have their own things going on. So if you don't speak up, how the heck are they going to know that you're struggling and you need help? Well, it's not a bad thing to ask for help.
Absolutely. 110%. And if we shift our mindset and we think about further up the food chain, further up the career path, you do reach a certain point in your career where it's very important to have a strategic understanding of leadership across the board. It's inevitable that you're going to be in a position to where you are going to wind up reporting to more than one, quote, boss. And I'm not talking about working for more than one company. Okay?
Yeah.
Don't do that. Or if you do, don't tell me about it. Okay? But when you're in that position where maybe you're reporting to the CFO and the CTO at the same time, if you strategically understand their perspective and the things that they say and the way that they communicate, yeah, okay, maybe an order or a thought that they put out there was seemed rash, or it was too much, or it was a deadline that didn't make any sense. Think about what Wendy said a little bit earlier. Maybe they're just throwing a date out there. Do what she said. Advocate for yourself to try to play with those deadlines a little bit. See what you could do. But understand where those leaders are coming from so that you can strategically understand the shape of the organization. They might be asking you to do things that align to a strategic vision and plan. They might have closed-door sessions where they're talking about things that you're not privy to. You might have to read between the lines to start to piece the story together. There's not necessarily something bad taking place there, but you might wind up being that bridge of communication between that CFO and CTO that never existed before. And you may increase your own value just simply by creating new communication paths.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Don't pit them against each other because it's not going to help anybody. First of all, they may be really good friends and you just didn't realize it. So don't pit them against each other. You have to be an adult. You have to put your big girl pants on, right? The final things that I would say to, summarize what you should do if you are looking to manage multiple bosses, is to have a list of your items, the deadlines, who gave it to you, when things are due, realistically, how much time each task is going to take so that you can start pushing back. And then when somebody else comes into your area, barges in and says, hey, I have an emergency, well, you could look at the list and say, which one should I get rid of? So you're going to have to make that decision, or you may have to ask somebody, hey, so-and-so over here is an emergency. Now I need to move that. Is that okay? Is it okay if I just get it to you tomorrow versus our deadline of today? And they may say no problem, or they say, no, that is a problem. The client's expecting it. Okay, let's all get together and figure this out, because I can't make this decision for you guys or for you gals or for the team. Yeah. So communication, pushing back professionally, and really, documenting and making sure there's a list, or if you're using some kind of technology program, of everything that you have on your plate and what the deadlines are. If you're not organized, how are you going to tell the other manager, I'm sorry, that deadline is not realistic because of X deadline over here? If you don't have proof of a task list and deadlines, then how are you going to speak up on behalf of yourself? Yeah,
establish those clear expectations among the two managers as well, or the three or four, however many there are. Document it, get it written down.
If you're thinking, I'm going to lose my mind because I don't have the guts to speak up, maybe you do need to, watch some videos, take a class. I really like to role play with somebody that I'm comfortable with, to say, hey, I want to have this conversation. It's making me a nervous wreck to have it. So I feel like I need to practice it. Yeah. And, ask your friend, your coworker, somebody that you live with, say, role play this with me, but be nice. And then say, okay, now push back a little bit. So I'll be more prepared for this conversation. You'd be surprised when you're practicing these fake conversations. You'd be surprised how it really does help you make the conversation real. I do it in a lot of my training programs with managers, usually with employee relations issues. Some of them are things, regarding legal concerns, FMLA, ADA, and other ones are just, somebody being a jerk and they don't know how to call them out. And I'll be like, all right, let's go ahead and let's practice this conversation. And they just sit there and their mouth goes, and then at the end, they're like, oh my God, Wendy, that was so uncomfortable, but I feel better now because now I know, and now I'm prepared for what could possibly go wrong, but then what could possibly go right. And I always tell my managers that I'm doing these trainings with is like, don't go in there without a checklist, even if it's just on your hand, on your phone, on a piece of paper that say, here are the 3 things I need to say by the end of this conversation, because some people, will steer you in all different crazy directions, and you walk out of those meetings, you're like, what just happened?
Hey,
so practice is 100% important.
110%. And look, while you're practicing, if you get answers back from yourself that you're not expecting and you start arguing with yourself, contact Wendy Sellers, the HR lady, for help with an EAP program. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if this is my technique, because I talk to myself all day long, and I talk to myself out loud all day long, and I'm like, oh yeah, I know what I need to do. So I might not be the one with that solution there. I'd be more than happy to hear you talk to yourself, as long as you're giving yourself good answers. So with that said, folks, contact me if you have any questions whatsoever, or if I could help you in any way whatsoever with these issues or other issues. Regarding the podcast, as the HR lady, you know that I'm always looking for feedback, and I'm always looking for guests. So if you want to be a guest on one of our future podcasts, just drop me a line. You can find me at thehrlady.com. Thanks for joining us.